Welcome back to another episode of the CyberVault. Today I'm very excited to be joined by Damien Lewke. Damien is founder and CEO of Nebulock, and they are an AI-powered platform that's truly redefining threat hunting by making the invisible obvious. Today we're going to explore how Nebulock is bringing continuous agentic threat hunting into real operations, why it's a game changer over some of the legacy detection tools, and how teams are already seeing their high impact with much less alert fatigue. But before we dive into all of that, Damien, it's a pleasure to have you here with me today. Why don't you kickstart, maybe give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself?
Well, thank you so much, Katie, for having me. It's great to be here. I've spent my entire career in and around the threat hunting and security space. So began my career in the DoD as an operator, joined CrowdStrike in early 2017 and was there through the IPO. Spent a little time overseas in Australia working with Palo Alto Networks and took some time off to go back to school at MIT before finally running the lab, so AI, threat intelligence, detections, engineering, and security research product teams at Arctic Wolf. So threat hunting, as I like to say, is my jam.
And definitely something that I think it's fair to say you're an expert in. And kind of we've unpacked this before, but I'm excited to get into it today because, and let's start with the foundations, Damien. Let's start with Nebulock's story because I think, this what you're doing is really exciting. It's literally on the forefront of innovation here. So talk about what inspired you to launch the company.
Absolutely. Breaches happen today because attackers know how to sidestep your existing detective and preventative controls. But in a world of AI-generated cyber attacks, and don't take my word for it, Anthropic's August threat report is a great reference for this, we know that AI-generated and AI-automated attacks are here to stay. Now, threat hunting was originally seen as a bit more of a luxury or for only a very few organizations that when you have time can get around to seeing if your existing tools have missed a detection. But in a world where the volume and veracity of AI generated cyber attacks is only increasing every single day, continuous hunting and threat hunting as a detection source and ultimately a proactive enforcement source is a necessity. So that's the idea and really the impetus behind starting Nebulock was understanding what we need to do and provide threat hunting at scale to everyone, not just a select few organizations when they have the time to do it.
And that's what makes you guys really exciting because you really hit the nail on the head when I don't think this is really common in so many parts of security when some of it is, it is a luxury to have because cyber can be expensive dependent on the product and what the solutions are. And a lot of the time people have, especially CISOs, are sat there with tight budgets and it's constant priority of, okay, well, which is going to be the biggest fire? Like, what do I need to prioritize here? So having something that allows them to adopt this at scale for something that, maybe historically hasn't been able to be a priority is a really unbelievable position to put companies and security leaders in. I mean,
yes.
When it comes to kind of the core problem that you're solving here, I mean, why do you think it's been so difficult for security teams to tackle this until, well, obviously Nebulock has come to the table?
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head, right? It's been a combination of budget and prioritization. So there was this perception of threat hunting as perhaps a nascent or a luxury thing to have that required teams, right? The way that threat hunting is done today is you have a team of threat hunters. And then there are several disparate sources of telemetry. You want to hunt on top of your data, and that can be in your EDR, that can be in your SIM, that can be in your security lake. A lot of times it's all three. So you have this problem of a human-driven, disparate data source environment where you have to normalize that information. You have to think about what you're looking for. You got to prioritize the response and then do something about it. That's a lot of time. It's a lot of resources. These are teams of teams that we're talking about. And what ultimately ends up happening is these CISOs who spend all this money on storing all of this information get very little value from the telemetry that they have because no one has the time to adjudicate anything beyond a critical or a high. And what we're really focused on doing is looking at the raw telemetry that you have, all the potential findings that haven't fired, all those informationals or lows that aren't getting looked at or deprioritized because if you actually think about most successful compromises, the attackers are hiding in those, right? They're false negatives where they slip in, they log in, they steal an OAuth token. And that's really where the time and value as it pertains to threat hunting is. But the challenge is it's just been really hard to find the time and the money to do that in the past.
Absolutely, and I think it's often it's a hugely kind of or widely talked about challenge within security, and something that I think is still going to have to. There's still some evolution that needs to come into play for, especially security leaders. They're looking to adopt technology, but solutions like this, what you're bringing to the table, are definitely going to help close that gap. Because I always talk about the fact that unless you work in cybersecurity, you can't really get your head around a lot of the concepts or how it's a if it hasn't happened to us, it's not going to happen to us until it's too late attitude a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
time. I mean, obviously, what's really exciting is you're still kind of a bit of a newer kid on the block, but already started to see some unbelievable success. I mean, tell me a little bit about some of that. I mean, whether it's been like customer adoption or detections that legacy tools have been missing historically. I mean, how have you seen kind of the first starting foundation since you've kind of gone to market?
Yeah, the key to our success, I think, has been a constant desire to better understand the problem of threat hunting for different organizations across the board. So, beginning the company, I actually interviewed 90 customers in 90 days. And I wasn't saying, hey, my name is Damien and this is my idea, but it was much more around how threat hunting fits into the overall problem that they're trying to solve and where are the gaps in their architectures and visibility. Now, that helped inform our amazing group of early adopters, but it also teased out kind of a roadmap and a thesis around like how we would want to surface that information, how we integrate with your existing tools, how we can make hunting accessible and actionable for teams, not just in the Fortune 2000, but across the board. Um, and in terms of kind of the success that we're starting to see, because we have that perspective from the market and we continue to work with our early adopters, and I continue to ask questions and ask for feedback. That's teased out a great roadmap. We've also hired some amazing folks. So we've got awesome threat hunters from CrowdStrike, the FBI, and other great security firms like Dragos. And the whole idea is by design, we aren't just building a product, but we have hunters ingrained in our engineering team so they can provide feedback and post training to the agents that we're building. Because AI, while great, is not perfect. And there's always opportunities for improvement, because when you say, hey, I'm building an agentic threat hunting platform, people go, well, great, how does an agent know how to threat hunt? And the key is to codify and platformize the intelligence of people into the way that these agents work. So the early successes that we're seeing, I think it always starts with time to value, making a product easy to integrate. So we hit your existing APIs. We've integrated 3,000 endpoints in 5 minutes. So very easy to get up and running and spun up. And then in terms of some of the core use cases and detections that we're finding that might have been missed, because we focus on primarily post exploit to action on objectives activity. So after an attacker has landed on your machine until they actually achieve their objective, that's a huge area of visibility gaps in existing security, right? People are going to use Windows system internals. People are going to slowly escalate privileges. They're going to get access through insecure remote access tools that we're not looking for in security, because we're trying to stop malware or exploits, not allow people to log in. But that's typically how attackers get in. So two core success stories beyond the being easy to set up and get up and running, which is always great as a former operator to be like, great, the tool is easy to use and not a headache. We had one example where a customer believed that they were preventing Tor from running in their environment. But we actually identified that whatever the access control policy wasn't enforced, and Tor browsers were able to be downloaded. And what we actually saw was a few folks internally had downloaded additional executables that violated the company's code of ethics, or were just outright malicious as a result of Tor browsers being allowed to be run. We were able to find that and surface that quickly, turn that around. And it was a great opportunity to prove value, not just saying like, hey, we saw this and this was something that had otherwise been missed, but also provide a broader educational opportunity of, hey, simply because you think a particular policy or a particular risk might be mitigated, that might not always be the case. Another really exciting one that I particularly enjoyed was being able to do a hunt along with a customer. So a customer had a suspected remote access situation, and what we were able to do is they kind of pointed us at the problem. We were able to identify a broad footprint of remote sharing tools across their endpoints, ranging from standard collaboration apps to admin remote control utilities. And the outcome of this hunt along was not just, hey, we validated your original hypothesis, but a concrete map of where and how these tools that I called out were running, which was really, really crucial for risk identification. And then also being able to translate these hunts into hardened detections within Nebulock that they could push into their detections pipeline. Because a big part of what we do and how we enable our customers is not just hunt, but then give you the ability to translate hunting ideas into hardened, battle tested detections that you can use today.
Awesome. I mean, I think you've just given some unbelievable examples there of that really proves the value that you're bringing to the table. I mean, really interesting to hear as well, because I think so many teams struggle with like alert fatigue and false positives. I mean, how do you help kind of cut through that noise? Because literally, like you've kind of just said there, you really help find actionable findings rather than just being like, here's a problem, good luck solving it. Like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, both in terms of product design, but also understanding business context is how we think about the false positives and alert fatigue process. So, what we call the outcomes of our hunts are findings, or when you write a detection and push it, it's a finding. We've been really, really judicious about understanding that for a finding to occur, we need to understand the business context. We need to identify not just one signal, not one alert that fires off of one detection, but multiple signals over time. And then ultimately translate that in a way that is easy to understand and business justified. When we give you a finding, we want to be certain that it is actionable, it is direct. And what agents are great at doing is capturing business context, using threat intelligence and cross correlating that with the finding that we've surfaced, and ultimately providing something that is direct, simple, and actionable with clear steps to remediation for organizations. Because one size does not fit all in security. While we may use similar applications, similar operating systems, every enterprise is different. And I have seen across our early adopter base and just in my own career, what might be very risky to some organizations is completely endorsed by others and vice versa. So the final component with these findings that we surface, and as you think about the false positives and alert fatigue, is we actually ask for feedback. You as a customer can provide post-training to Nebulock saying, I want to see more of this, or I don't want to see something like this, or actually, this is totally legitimate. So we don't have folks do more work. We allow and enable people to do more work with the platform that we have.
awesome. And I think literally what you just mentioned there is so, so important that so many businesses forget about. It's that feedback piece. If you can, this market evolves so quickly all the time. It's never going to be stagnant, not with the adoption of not just AI, but even when we look at the future and people can talk about like quantum computing or whatever it may be, there's always a new technology on the horizon. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
if you're able to really understand what the problems are that your customers are facing, your potential customers are facing as they continue to adopt products or that, adopt new technology, that's the best way to obviously say as valuable to them as possible. I think is probably just the easiest way to put it. I mean, if you kind of look at the bigger picture, how do you see Nebulock kind of changing the way security teams think about threat hunting and detection? Because, like you mentioned earlier, it's been something that has maybe been out of reach or a bit of a luxury, especially on that kind of the scalability side. I mean, how do you think
Mm-hmm.
that impact's gonna kind of be there over the next few years?
Yeah, so our current marketing tagline, which I'm sure will be updated, is agentic threat hunting for everyone. But really, what we're trying to do is shorten the skills gap, shorten the resource gap, shorten the enablement gap so that everybody is able to have and obtain a threat hunting capability right out of the box. We want to remove these esoteric, really hard human expert workflows and I want to be very clear. We're here to enable existing hunters. We're not replacing threat hunters. What we are doing is empowering the hunters that exist, and for organizations that can hunt 27 minutes once a month because that's all they have time for, now they can do that automatically and at scale all the time. And the longer term plan for this, right, is to deliver threat hunting as an outcome to every single organization who wants it. Because back to the problem we're trying to solve, bad guys sidestepping detection mechanisms at scale, hunting is going to be the way that you find them. And it's not just about, okay, we need to find them once every week because that's the time that we have. Lateral movement statistics are down to a couple minutes, and that's only going to get shorter. We want to be able to give that real-time hunting intelligence in the moment because we're trying to solve a really first-order problem in security: false negatives, right? Why breaches happen, and we want to enable that continuously at scale, and that's what we've built and are continuing to march down towards.
No, I mean it's ultimately it's I think kind of hitting a pain point that so many people are, and specifically, you kind of touched base there, but so many people are going to sit there and be like, actually, this is really going to help enhance what I can do. It's often a fear of adopting technologies that are using things like Gen AI or just automating things, thinking it's taking away from the value you add. Whereas actually, if you take that step back, you're recognizing that actually it's allowing you to spend time on things that you maybe couldn't have before, and just enhancing the role. And what you're able to do, and the quality that you're able to do it at as well, which I think is equally as important. I mean, if we're looking at kind of like the next 12 to 18 months for Nebulock, I mean, have you got any kind of key things that you're really working towards right now? Is there anything in particular that kind of people should be keeping their eye on that's really exciting on the horizon?
Yeah, so absolutely. The primary aspect is coverage. So we are working across endpoint and identity platforms right now, and we'll be quickly adopting cloud. The whole idea being we want to expand and own all telemetry sources for hunting. So I think that's the core component, is giving you that breadth and visibility across your environment and enabling that hunting process at scale. And then the next big step is just to keep moving forward, keep delivering value to our customers. It's really encouraging to see that we've got folks who say, it does what it says on the tin. In a world where marketing and reality tend to be a bit disparate, at least in security. So our focus is just to continue moving down that path, to continue delivering value to our customers, to give them more visibility, and do so consistently.
No, awesome. And I think kind of, if anything, it says, watch this space, but also to anybody that's been listening in and kind of saying, this sounds unbelievable, reach out. I think it's definitely worthwhile doing, and hearing more about what you guys have been up to. And I suppose to kind of close off the episode then, because we've unpacked so much, and I think you've demonstrated the absolute value that is in kind of Nebulock and kind of what you've brought here. But for any security leaders that have tuned in today and they feel that they're stuck with noisy reactive tools, what's one step that they could take right now that can help start moving them towards Nebulock's kind of proactive model?
Ask questions of your data. In fact, specifically ask your team which remote access tools are running in our environment today. I think that'll be an excellent forcing function of understanding what that retrospective view looks like, what that workflow is, which teams or teams of teams are involved in that process, and where visibility gaps are.
Fantastic. I mean, easily actionable and arguably a very great, very valuable piece of advice to close out on. But I mean, Damien, this has been an unbelievable episode. I recommend to anybody who's tuned in today to reach out to Damien and the team. Obviously, have a little bit more of a look into Nebulock's offering, because I think, deep diving into how you guys are pushing detection forwards, and it's not just about louder alerts, but smarter visibility, earlier discovery. You've broken it down in a way that I think makes people realize how impactful this is absolutely going to be. So thank you so much for joining us here today, Damien. It's honestly, it's been a pleasure to unpack. And to our listeners, as always, don't forget to subscribe. Make sure to share this episode with your security peers. Get connected with us on LinkedIn. Of course, like I mentioned, get connected with Damien and the team on LinkedIn. But that is it for today. So thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time for more conversations that are shaping cyber.